Discover the career of your dreams. Learn how to get your foot in the door, stand out, and create the life you desire. This is our time. This is our adventure. I'm Siobhan Colleen. This is Industry Explorers. Hello, Industry Explorers. It is me, your host, Siobhan Colleen. And today we're going to talk about law, construction management, women in construction, and all things related. And today I've got with me an incredible woman. She is a boss babe. And oh my gosh, there is no introduction that is good enough for Patricia Haywood because holy shit, man, you've got so much to cover. Like, you've got an incredible background. You have so many certifications, so many degrees. You've lived in multiple countries. Guys, this is going to be a fantastic episode and a fantastic conversation. Patricia, what time is it over there right now? Because here in Missouri, it's 10 o'clock in the morning.
It's 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock at night?
In the evening, yeah.
It's 4 in the evening in London.
It gets dark so quickly, yeah.
Nice. That's so you are my first international guest, which is super awesome. And I love your LinkedIn. You are just doing great things, and I can't wait to take a deeper dive into your story. So let's just get right into it. I know we were talking about this off the air, but I want to go ahead and just bring it up right now. So you grew up in Jamaica, and now you're living in London. And even in between all of that, you've lived in multiple countries. So real quick, I just want to describe the United States education system for our listeners. And I would love to have you kind of do a little comparison with the Jamaican education system and the United Kingdom's education system. So just in a nutshell, in the United States, most kids go to preschool, then kindergarten, then we do elementary school up until 5th or 6th grade, depending on the school. Then you do middle school, then high school. And from high school, kids have lots of options. You can either go to college, you can go to vocational school, you can join the military, or you can just go right into the workforce. If you do the college route, kids have the option of getting an associate's degree, which takes about 2 years, a bachelor's degree, which takes about 4 years. After a bachelor's degree, then you become a graduate student where you can get your master's and or a PhD. So in a nutshell, that's what I know of the education system in the United States. Are there similarities and differences in Jamaica and in the United Kingdom?
Well, because we're a former colony, we follow what they do here in the UK. So we do that preschool, kindergarten. Then we go off to what we call prep school, which is like private school. And from there, you then move into high school. And in high school, we tend to stay in high school and do like A-levels. And then we move into university. Or you can move into like a trade school, which is something that I considered that I was actually going to do. And it's similar here in the UK. You do the preschool, the kindergarten. You then go on to like a prep school. We call it here a public school. And it depends on the public school you go to. Some stop at age 7, age 9. Some go all the way up until A-levels, and then you go off into university or you go to a trade school. I think it's less transitions here than in the US.
So did you go straight to law school after high school?
I did.
I think here in the United States, you are required to get an undergraduate degree before pursuing law school.
Yes, but in Jamaica and in the UK, it's different. You can go straight from high school. So you do A-levels, advanced level exams. They're administered by Cambridge University. And then you can go straight into doing law.
So what inspired you to get a law degree? Because I was reading in your bio that you grew up with your family owning a construction company.
Yeah, I had quite a varied upbringing. My family wasn't wealthy. And so I actually come from a family of hustlers. Always hustling, right? And I think that's why somehow they went into construction, because construction is one of those industries where the barrier to entry is a lot lower and you can hustle and make it, you know? So I actually I think I'm the first one in my immediate family to go to university. I actually didn't have any role models. I didn't know anything about law. What happened was I was at school and they had careers day, and a lawyer came
Mm.
and he did a presentation. I was just like, wow. After I went up to him and I spoke to him, I was like, what do I need to do? And he said, do these things. And that was it. And I just doubled down and started doing what he said. And then that's how I got into law and went off to do law. But by this time I'd gotten a scholarship to do medicine.
Oh my gosh.
Because I studied the sciences in school. I don't know why, but somehow I just studied the sciences. And Jamaica has good relations with Cuba. So you find a lot, Cuba, they give a lot of scholarships to Jamaican students to come there and study like medicine, sciences, that type of thing, STEM subjects.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd gotten a scholarship to go there and do pre-med into med, but I needed, it didn't work out. I was underage. I needed, my family didn't want me to go at that point in time. So I ended up staying back, doing A-levels and pursuing law.
That's very fascinating because when you decided to go into law, you just went like full force, because I was doing a little LinkedIn stalking and you studied luxury goods. You have a luxury goods certificate where you studied intellectual property. I totally butchered your certificate, but
I studied that in New York at the Fordham University.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Intellectual property, business and taxation law, international commercial law. You've also got a Master of Science in Major Program Management, which that's not exactly law, but can you describe your post, I guess, high school education path? Like when you did go to university and you did pursue law, what did that pathway look like for you?
Well, when I went to university, I studied law. It actually, even in university, was a struggle. There were times when I was going to drop out of law school because I just could not afford it. I remember there was this, because when you do law, you go, so I went to University of the West Indies, which is a regional university. So everyone in CARICOM goes to this university. If you want to do law, you all go to Barbados. If you want to do medicine, you all go to Jamaica. If you want to do like engineering, you all go to Trinidad. That's how it's set up. So we all went to Barbados. And I remember sitting in Bridgetown. I was like thinking, I had a second or final year and I did not have money to pay my fees. And I remember sitting on a bench in the middle of Bridgetown wondering, what am I going to do? You know, am I going to drop out? But thankfully, that sorted itself out. So I was able to complete the degree. So I did the degree. And then after the degree, you have to do a practicing certificate, which I did. That also takes 2 years in order for you to be called to the bar. So when I decided I was going to do law, I decided I was going to do commercial law, because that's just because of the background of my family and just the hustling. We've always been hustling with like business. So I figured this is more my thing. I even tried practicing criminal law. I just could not do it. And from there, after I finished studying, I was working throughout this time, part-time and everything like that to fund my way. And then I got a job. So I went to the British Virgin Islands to work with a firm there. But I just always wanted more for my life. You know, I'm from a small island. I wanted to do more. I just always saw myself having an extraordinary life, seeing things, seeing the world, and just experiencing more. So I decided that I was going to leave. And I left and I went to Dundee to do a master's. At the time, I didn't know anything about Dundee. I had a friend who was going to go there, and he said it was a great university. He showed me the program and I researched them. I was just like, whoa, I love this town. So I went there and I did a master's, and then I went to France and that's where I did the business and taxation. So those masters were really just an opportunity for me to get out. If I'm honest with you, it was just an opportunity for me to get out and to do something different and to see different parts of the world, experience things that I just would never have been able to experience. And after that, after I finished my master's, it was the financial crisis. And I could not get a job. I was trying to get a job. I couldn't get a job. And that's when things really took a turn. From me going that straight law route, I just decided, okay, well, one thing I knew to do was to start companies because that's all I was doing in the BVI, starting companies. So I was just like, I'm going to start a company. And, my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time. I met him in law school, but he left and he did his master's in Toronto and he's been traveling and doing work. So I said to him, we could do this because he was already doing a lot of freelancing. I was just like, this is a way we could do this because he already had a lot of contacts. He was doing it. And so we created the company and started doing it under the company. And that's how really things just took a different turn.
What was the name of that company?
Oh, it was called Kappa Trade.
Okay.
Yeah, it was supposed to be like Caribbean, Pacific.
Kappa Trade Advisors. You were the director.
Yeah. So we started doing work under that. And because he had already built up this reputation and all these contacts, we were able to then grow that company to have then other people consult under the company for us. So essentially what we were like bidding for work. You have a lot of donor agencies and departments that fund international trade and development work in developing countries. And then they need delivery partners to then go in country and deliver this work. It could be like a workshop. It could be a feasibility study, whatever it may be. And that's what we did. And so that went well. And at the time, during the financial crisis, there was a lot of work for that because it was even before the financial crisis hit in like developed countries. We had financial crisis in Asia. We even had in Jamaica. We had a lot in these developing countries. So they were already bleeding from all of this. So by the time the financial crisis hit, like in the US and the UK, they were already like on rock bottom. So they needed help to be pulled out. So there was a lot of work going on during that time in developing countries. So that's what I did. And then from there, excuse me, from there, I decided that, I started doing more work in like oil and gas, especially when I lived in Jakarta, renewables. And I really liked it. And I decided I was going to try and by this time I wanted to find my own way. Because remember, I was latching on to my husband at that time to find my feet in the world. And that's really how it started, like in project management and like going back into construction. Even on the Kappa, I was still a bit in construction because a lot of the projects that were funded were, construction is always the route to development for countries, like financial development. So that was something that I just somehow I just latched onto it and started down that path, and that was it. And so that's how I transitioned out of doing a law. Of course, there are other issues that presented themselves during that time, but really that was just the wave. I just rode the wave at that point in time because I was trying to get jobs, legal jobs, and I remember actually when I was living in Jakarta, because there was a time when I was also consulting with a firm there, a law firm. And there was a lady that I met in Jakarta and became really good friends. And one day she said to me, Patricia, what it is that you really want to do? What is that? And I thought about it. And I was like, okay, I'm going to try and create my own path. And that's when things really started shaping out.
Why was it so important to create your own path? You've repeated that a couple of times. So it is super important to you. And I just want to know, I want to hear your answer. Why is that so important to you, to your being?
Because it is through walking your own path. It's like, it's your passion. You can't live someone else's dream and someone else's passion because over time it becomes a burden. And that one of the reasons why, as you saw, that Kappa is no longer around is over time it became clear that I was not necessarily walking my own path, my own journey. This really came out of necessity, but I wanted to go back to that place where I was doing something that lit me up. I wasn't just doing something because I was good at it. I'm good at law stuff. I'm good at contracts, commercial. I am really good at that. If you ask anybody, my colleagues and stuff, I'm good at that. But I don't necessarily wake up in the morning wanting to go and do law stuff. It doesn't light me up. So walking my path for me means doing something that aligns with my passion or with my mission, something that I know deep down, this is what I want to do. This is the impact that I want to make. And it is not based on what someone else is doing. It is not based on for example, the financial climate. It is not something that is forced, but it's something that it comes naturally to me, and therefore I can see it through, so if even like with Kappa, we could be doing that now. We could be doing it now, but over time, I just realized this was not what I wanted to do for the long run. And so it is
what gets you up in the morning?
Right. It is what gets me up in the morning is, for example, right now, what I'm doing in terms of working with women in the industry to build better businesses. I love working with women in construction. I love building businesses. I love financials, going deep in the numbers and finding where the leaks are and turning off those leaks. I love like working with someone in a founder. They have this huge problem. And by working with me, I can add value. I can help them to solve or mitigate that problem. And I can see the value I add. And that lights me up. At the end of the day, it all comes down to dollars and cents for most people, but it's really about me. What I love is seeing the transformation I can bring about in that person or in that business. And that's what lights me. And I think also because for many years I worked with like Fortune 500 companies, multinationals. Even when we worked with Kappa, it was B2B. So we worked with like, donor agencies, or we worked with, so you may have like a bigger company who won the bid, and then they will like piece it out to different companies that will get a part of it. So it was always B2B. And
just real quick for our listeners, with my content, I try to help kids who are between like 14 and 24, basically through high school and after high school, maybe even post university, just anyone who's trying to figure out like just a young professional, what do I want to do with my life? So real quick, can you describe what a Fortune 500 company is and then what B2B means?
Okay, so that's a good point. So really, the companies that I was working with were large companies. Their annual revenues were like in the multi-million dollars. And they have like elaborate boards, corporate structures. They probably had like a mother company. They were probably the baby company. So it was just a huge structure of companies. These were like, when you look at like the board of directors or their management team, these were like highly educated intellectual people. So, and oftentimes for them at the end of the day, it's about money. It's not necessarily about, especially at that point in time, things have changed now, but especially when I was working at that point, it was all often about like the shareholder value. How much money can we get from doing X? That's what they look at. And in B2B, so I would work mostly, I was a business and I was contracting with another business. So I didn't have to like go out there and look for a person to buy my services. And that was actually a lot easier. And now in this business that I do, where I'm working mostly with female founders, it's very different. Now
you're business to consumer instead of business to business.
Yes, more business. Yes, because business to business, it's in terms of the marketing, finding work, I find it to be easier, especially in the sector in which I was working in, because at that point in time, there weren't that many people who understood international development, understood international trade. And even now, you don't have that many lawyers who work in the field. They tend to be economists. So we're needed in that field. But so that's, it's about really finding something that I want to do and creating something of my own that I can then feel good about, and that I can wake up in the morning and this is what I want to do. And then I can see the impact that I'm making. And I mean, there are lots of studies that have been done on international trade and international development. And you see the changes quicker in what I'm doing now than you go into a country trying. You can work in a country for many years before you see the transformation, so that takes time.
Can you describe different roles and responsibilities that are involved throughout the supply chain?
In construction?
Sure. I'm just trying to, help listeners be exposed to all of this different language, So like while I want to definitely like do deep dives into all of this, I also want to like briefly cover the basics so that people know what it is that we're talking about. But yes, because you said that you've worked at every level of the supply chain, from errands girl to admin, procurement, project financing, quality.
Yes. And so in construction, it's a huge supply chain, especially the projects that, I enjoy working on, which are like major projects. These are multi-billion dollar and pound projects. It's huge. So you have the supply chain is not just like the main contractor, and then you have like the employer. Oftentimes in these projects, it's the government. You also have subcontractors. You have suppliers of like the products. You have suppliers of like the equipment on the plant. You have people in the supply chain, even the cleaning company, the cafeterias, the manufacturers who might not be in the UK, might not even be in the EU, might be in China. Then you have the transportation system, so that the person who collects it from, for example, the manufacturer, they bring it over. Then you have the company that might store it, because we like to order things just in time, which means we order it as soon as we need it, so we don't have to store it. But that creates a whole lot of problems. So you will find that we might order something and store it. So you need a storage facility. And sometimes these are huge equipment. Like, so you can't just like buy a locker and put in it. It's like real commercial storage. Then you have the people who work on the projects, and they might be an employee. They might maybe not. They could be a consultant, could be an independent tradesperson. It's a huge line. And what often happens is we have communication issues because we have so many players. And even then you have the employer, for example, if it's a government agency, and you have the people in the government agency, you have the funders, the people who fund the project, might not, oftentimes the government doesn't fund the project 100%. They'll have other investors. It could be private sector like banks. It could be other countries that fund the project. So it's a huge system. And when you're delivering this, for example, if you're on the contractor side, the main contractor who's delivering the project, that's a huge responsibility. It's a huge risk. And then you have the population, people like you and me who are the taxpayers. And we have an expectation too. We pay taxes, which in the UK, for example, is business rates. So each business will pay a rate to the council. And oftentimes the council will use some of that money to fund projects within the borough. And so there's an expectation there from me as a taxpayer that whatever you're going to put the money in is going to benefit me. It's going to look beautiful. It's going to provide some value. So the supply chain is huge in construction. It's huge. And, so we have a lot of issues and tensions as a result of it. It often works out that the program is delayed for the delivery of the thing we're building, because we have so many players. And we see it now even with COVID, where, especially in the first lockdown, where the construction was impacted because everybody has to stay home because of COVID. A lot of trade people got COVID, so they couldn't turn up to work. We also have a huge problem with labor. We don't have a lot of qualified tradesmen and women. And so that also impacts on how we deliver projects. So the supply chain is pretty big. It's pretty big.
Is it more accurate to think of a supply chain as like an up and down hierarchy, or more as like a cyclical kind of a cycle?
Well, it depends on who you ask. Some people like to think it's an up and down, but I don't. I like to see the supply chain as partners. Everyone in the supply chain is a partner. And how I look at it, everybody in project on a project, responsibility is risk management. Every single one, even the cleaner, is risk management. They're ensuring that, for example, the surfaces are clean, the floors are clean, because if someone slips, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
If we're overrun with rodents, which often happens, that's a problem. It's health and safety. So everyone is in the business of risk management. And because of that, you need to see everyone as your partner. We're in a partnership together. And so it's not about, and, in construction, we have this reputation of, everyone trying to get the, up end on the other. But really what we need to start doing is more working together. So I would see it, yeah, as you say, it's a circle of all of us. I think of it as, like in the 80s when we used to have those ads and those, the music and the videos with people holding hands, like hands across the world. That's how I look. That's how I look at it.
I think that's a really interesting mindset. If I'm hearing you correctly, risk management really should be a concept that is at the forefront of everyone's minds, no matter where you are in the supply chain, no matter where you are in regards to business, whether you're the tradesperson or the founder or the cleaning crew or the logistics team, like everyone should be thinking about risk management.
Yeah, that's what we do. That's the number one thing that we do on every project is risk management. And everyone is in the business of risk management. And when you look at it like that, you don't have a hierarchy, because in the hierarchy, you won't have that sense of responsibility. You then push it off. Oh, it's the head of the programs, or it's the project.
It's someone else's problem.
So, and that's a problem that we have in construction, in the industry. When you look at it as we are all in the business of doing risk management, then you realize that everybody has a crucial role to play on the project. It doesn't matter where they are. Even the person who cleans the toilet, everything is connected together. And if one person drops the ball, then I've worked on projects before where we have issues with rodents, for example, or with foxes. And that's because the cleaning isn't seen as a crucial element of the project. So what you'll find often is because of that, the cleaning supplies aren't the best. The cleaners aren't motivated. They do the bare minimum. And so you get overrun, for example, by rodents. It's a health and safety problem. They can shut down your site. That impacts your program. So you're going to be delayed, something as simple as that. So when you look at it that, we are all here in the business of risk management. We all have a crucial role to play. I don't believe in hierarchies on projects. It damages projects. Then you'll find that everyone will step up, which is our motto here in the industry. and everyone will take responsibility for the role that they play on the project.
Yeah. Oh, that is just that's a like I said, that's a really good mindset to have. I come from fault protection and rescue. So when I go on my job sites, safety is always on the forefront of my mind. And, we always are about risk management. Okay, there's a fall hazard. How are we going to manage that? Okay, there's a biochemical hazard. There's rat droppings, or there's pigeon droppings, or there's, vermin or bugs. Even when you're like on top of a building or up a wind turbine, these are all important things to consider. And, we're all about mitigating these hazards. So to me, it seems like second nature to think about it in that way. But when you're talking about different aspects of a project, you're totally right. It is important to think about risk management, and it is important to think about other departments as your partner.
Yes.
A project is all about partnership between everyone else. So I think it's a really unique perspective to have, and one that a lot of people should adopt, because you've managed multi-billion-dollar projects. That's so incredible. And by the way, for our listeners, £1 billion is 1.36 billion USD during the time of this recording. So, nevertheless, billions and billions of dollars. Like, that's, to me, I've never managed a project like that. So that is super admirable.
But you know what? I get that a lot. First, let me just say this. I just want to say this point that I believe that if we put a lot of emphasis on projects is placed on delivery, And so you have contractors who they just come in and they're just here to deliver eggs. And that is why you see pictures float around the internet, for example, or even the other day, they come to fix the road. They come to fix potholes in the road. They have, authorization to fix 2, right? They turn up their 3 potholes. This happened the other day. They fixed the 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the lady said to them, but here's a third one. They're like, no, on my paper, it says 2. So we're fixing 2. So they've left 1. Why does that happen? Because we're in the business of delivery. If you're in the business of risk management, you look at things completely differently. You look at it because you fix 2 potholes. There's one there. Someone is driving along the street. Something happens to them. Nobody's going to think, oh, they only had 2 potholes. They're going to say that company is terrible. They only came, and we see that a lot. Even here, in the UK where, someone dropped the ball on something because we're so focused on just delivery only that it then comes back around and bite us.
Mm-hmm.
Because then the cladding was incorrect because, I'm just here to deliver cladding. So even though there's a red flag, I'm putting this up and staring me in the face. I realize this is wrong because I'm only focused on delivery. I don't realize that I have a role to play in risk management. What is risk? And a part of it is that risk management for us tend to focus on dollars and cents.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we tend to look at it. Risk management needs to focus on the human, because we really build things for humans. And I think in construction, we've lost sight of that. We build things for people to enjoy. We build things to make our lives better. And we also build things to look beautiful because we're humans. We like to see beautiful things. So we need to realize that risk management is not just about dollars and cents. It's not just about, oh, here's this event. How much is it going to cost? How are we going to mitigate it the cheapest way possible? It has to be, here is this event. What is the impact it can have on the human? That's how we need to start looking at, and then touching on your point about, like large projects. Yeah, I get that a lot, but this is the thing. And this was one of the things, even coming into the space, they like to say, oh, have you ever managed a project large like this before? That's one of the things I like to use to discredit people. And I've had tons of people work with me, even apprentices, and they'll come in and they're so scared to work. I was like, listen, if you have $1 million, do you spend $1 million all at once? No, you break it up. No one goes out there and spend $1 million all at once, unless you're going to buy a house, right? You break it up. If it's $1 billion, you break it up. When you look at how we break it up, like let's say 10,000 might go to that supplier, 20,000 might go to that supplier. And that's how you spend money. And so when you look at it that way, you can manage any project. If you've managed a project that's like, let's say 100,000, 200,000, you can manage a multi-million-dollar project.
That is so empowering. I feel like I've needed someone to tell me that like years ago. Like just listening to you say that gives me more confidence in my own abilities right now. And I don't manage construction projects.
But yeah, it's possible because we don't spend money like that. And it's all about just getting the value for every dollar that we spend. And there's no magic to it. There's no illusion. There is nothing that you cannot do. And if you're already in the market, if you're already in the industry, if you're already doing things and you're doing things at a high level, it is possible for you to work on any project.
As a project manager, whether it's for a construction project or when it comes to your Master Builders program, when you're managing projects, what are some of the tools you like to use?
Well, I will tell you something. In major projects, the tools that we use, Excel.
Excel. There you go, guys. Go take your beginner Excel classes. Go take the intermediate and the advanced Excel classes. Go learn about all those pivot tables. And I'm not real advanced at Excel. So, well, now I've got something that on my to-do list.
Yeah, that's what we use. On every major project that I've worked on, we use Excel. It is important that we get a little bit more sophisticated. But I mean, we use other software, like program management software, like BIM softwares, like ProjectWise, contract management softwares.
Oh, can you talk about some of the contract management softwares and what those are responsible for?
So we use standard form contracts in the industry. So what you find when I say standard form contracts is that the contracts are already written. In most cases, an organization would have spent the time to come up with the terms and the clauses in that contract, and then they will sell it. You can purchase that contract to use on any construction project that you have. And they have different contracts for like, depending on the type of project that you want to deliver. And so that's what I mean by standard form. So in most cases, you won't go to, for example, a lawyer to draft up a contract for you. You'll just take a contract that's already there, purchase it, and it's made for the industry, and you use that contract. So because of that, there is some uniformity in the contracts that we use in the industry, and people can then make programs to handle these contracts. So
I actually have a question about uniformity. How much uniformity is there in either contracts or law in general when it comes to doing business in different continents? Because in a couple of your work experience histories, it says that you've done like the legal consulting work in Europe, Asia, and Africa. And so like how much uniformity is there between contracts and in just law in general when you're doing international business?
Okay, so I studied common law, which is the British law. I also studied civil law because civil law is what they practice like in France, and they have like a hybrid in Scotland. And then when I did that little certification at Fordham, I actually went to New York to do that. I did touch a little bit on the US, but of course, just a little bit. Just enough to get by. So I have a fair idea of certain, concepts and how they play in different jurisdictions. And then when I lived and worked, for example, in Jakarta, Jakarta is also civil law. What you will find is that there are dominant legal systems in the world, and it tends to be like common law or civil law, some variation of it. And for example, in Commonwealth countries of Australia, Jamaica, South Africa, like all these places, even parts of the US, they will quote and follow British cases, for example.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And it would be the same like in civil law jurisdictions. And one thing to note is that when I worked, for example, with the donors in international development, when the donors come in, they tend to bring the contracts with them. So they'll say, for example, you must use this standard form contract.
When you say donors, are you talking about like project investors?
So the donors might be, for example, in America, you have an international development aid agency. So they would consider them a donor.
Oh, okay.
They're donating the money. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're donating the huge amount of money to do this work. So we call them the donor. So like in the UK, we have the DFID, the department that would, so, or it might be like an agency that gets the money and then they organize it. So they're donating this money to do the work. And what you'll find is that when they come to, for example, a developing country, they will come and say, okay, you must use this contract, or these are the terms. And if it's, for example, a project that's funded by the British government, of course, those terms, they're going to use terms that they're used to.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to want to use contracts that they're used to, clauses that they're used to. And so even if it's in a country where the language is not English, you can still do the work, because I would have understood like Commonwealth law. I would understand like those terms in those contracts. So working, for example, in Jakarta, you will work with people who speak Bahasa Indonesia who can translate the law for you. But a lot of it, what you'll find is universal, the principles, the things that you're trying. And having lived in so many different countries, one thing that I realized that we are all the same.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed today's show,
Be sure to give us a rating and a review. Share your favorite industry insight on your social media pages, and be sure to tag @IndustryExplorers. For more Industry Explorers goodies, go to youcanfollow.me/Industry Explorers. That's youcanfollow.me/Industry Explorers.